Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Last Edit Podcast, a weekly podcast on film starring yours truly, Silver Hawkins, and my great friend.
Citizen Sleeve, hello there.
As you know, we alternate between films every week, and this week I've chosen, rather unorthodoxly, a television movie, an HBO film called The Pentagon Wars, based on the book by the same name by Colonel James Burton, and based on his experiences working at the Pentagon and trying to sort of implement reforms in the Pentagon to sort of combat just major corruption and money waste. So really, it's sort of it's a satire comedy. It's not, unlike a lot of the other films we've talked about, it's not really like a masterpiece in terms of like movie making, but it is a movie with a really, really interesting story to tell, and just it is deft filmmaking in how it's made. I think it's really, really well made overall, and it has a really interesting and funny story that I think is worthy of attention. It stars Kelsey Grammer and Cary Elwes, and it's directed by Richard Benjamin. John C. McGinley is also in the film in a minor role. What did you think about it? Let's just start off.
Well, I'd never seen it before, and I think part of the reason might be because it is a TV film, specifically American. You're right. The whole production is more than competent, production-wise. It's more than competent. It's never going to win any awards for cinematography or camera movement or editing, because it's not that type of film. Instead, it's foreground and a really ludicrous story that's based on reality with some just great performances. Like Viola Davis as Fanning is just the moment that Cary Elwes first moves into that office, Colonel Barton. The two hit off so wonderfully well. The little cheeky kind of nods to what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, Kelsey Grammer's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. As General Partridge, isn't it? And the lengths he will go to try and just ignore the true intent of what this thing will actually be able to do on the battlefield. My God, it's framed in this kind of I guess the post-hearing bit, as we start with him, and you think it's just kind of against a black backdrop almost to camera, and then he pulls back. And these guys are questioning him, and some of the stuff they're asking him, the ways he's answering, the way he'll obfuscate a question and move in and out of it like a politician will, but in such an overt fashion. It's like that they make this tank that it's supposed to be a people carrier.
Yeah, I should probably sorry to interrupt. Should probably start off. That was my bad by basically giving a brief summation of the film. What it's about. It's about like Cary Elwes plays Colonel James Burton, who's been an Air Force colonel, who's been assigned to oversee a U.S. Army research and development project for the development of the Bradley fighting vehicle. This is back in the 80s. And at this point, the Bradley has been in development for, I think, 17 years, and still hasn't been put into production. And they're really, really anxious. The brass is really anxious to finally get it into production. And there's like significant sort of, they're trying to exert pressure on Colonel Burton to sort of breeze it through the testing that they have to do. Basically, just rubber stamp it and put it into production. But James Burton is not particularly interested in just rubber stamping it. He is determined to run the proper tests on the Bradley after he initially sort of smells foul play in the first test he witnesses, where the rocket-propelled grenade just plinks off the Bradley's armor like it's nothing. And he starts smelling foul play, and then you start looking deeper into things, and the rot runs steep at the Pentagon. And that's basically it. And Kelsey Grammer is his commanding officer, basically the general in charge of overseeing all of these projects. That's basically where we're at. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I just Cary Elwes in this is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. There's some of the stuff he discovers.
Yeah, he's just a straight man.
It's just a complete straight man working against this system, but working within this rule set, which he understands so well, he can manipulate it a bit.
Yeah, after he starts reading up on it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, find me the rules. I will use the rules, and we will get there with the rules. But some of the stuff along the way. So, this vehicle. So, well, first of all, there's this whole montage, kind of like a third into the movie, kind of halfway.
So he starts. Well, it's actually even earlier. It's the first. I think even like the first third to quarter of the movie. Even like it's when he starts overseeing the project, because what they do is he starts after that first test, he smells foul play, and so he starts insisting he wants papers on the Bradley. He wants to see the records of its prior tests, what it's been through, and so forth. And so they're not really very fond of that, because if he sees the records of the prior tests, he's going to see that the Bradley is not quite up to snuff in a lot of areas, and so they basically drown him in paperwork. They give him every single paper that's ever been written on the Bradley. They stuff his office full of boxes of archives, and he starts going through them. And then we get sort of a montage of the 17 years that the Bradley has been in development, where it starts with Colonel Smith, who wants very much to start building a new troop carrier for the U.S. Army, and he wants to name it after General Omar Bradley, and it's going to be great. And then, unfortunately, some generals, he has to sell it to some generals to put it into production, and the generals start throwing in their own ideas. They don't just want it to be a troop carrier. One of the generals wants a scout, but his scouting project has been nixed by Congress, its budget, so he basically thinks this is a good excuse to just roll that scout project into the Bradley and make the Bradley a scout vehicle, even though it's a troop carrier. And things really just snowball from there, where the brass just keeps sticking on stuff that doesn't belong there, and the actual production team just looks on in exasperation, because they know this is never going to work. You have a troop carrier that can't carry troops with enough armaments to basically win World War III or destroy a major city, and with paper thin armor that can't even keep out a bullet almost.
Well, yeah, and they have to fit that much crap in it that it goes down from an 11 person soldier
to 5. Sorry, it's a troop carrier that can carry troops, like I said, yeah.
Absolutely ludicrous, man.
And carries enough munitions to annihilate
to decimate a city. Just at every point, so he's swamped with this paperwork. His offices are filled with the stuff. He doesn't know where the hell to start. He and Fanning, his Viola Davis's character, start sifting through this stuff, and they come across two versions of it, and they're like, "Because this is what it's supposed to look like originally, and this is what it is now. How did this get what it was
supposed to look like initially was very similar to the M113 armored personnel carrier."
Yeah, and that whole montage is so funny.
Yeah.
So Smith keeps going to hearing. So he goes to this initial hearing, and he's right, guys.
And he's played by Richard Schiff, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, and he's perfect for that role. Like the beaten down guy who just can't convince them to do the normal stuff they should. So he rolls out this idea every time. The first time, this is a troop carrier, and they're like, "Yeah, but I mean, I've got
we couldn't make it a scout.
Could make it a scout as well, but then it's quick enough. Yeah, but it's too big to be a scout. They'll see it from a mile, so it's not going to be a scout. It's not going to. Yeah, but no, it will be. Okay, go away." The designer's like, "How am I supposed to put that in?"
Yeah,
I don't get what you mean.
And they want portholes so the men can shoot out of it.
And they want portholes so the men can shoot out. And they go back again, and the same general's like, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, if it's going to have problems with tanks, we could put anti-tank missiles on it with sticky tape and a bit of glue." It's like, oh,
and why are there portholes on it?
Yeah, more portholes, so they're whacked on. And then they're like, "But can't we have even more ammo?" And he goes back to the designer and is like, "What do you want me to do? Put the ammo on the helmets and the soldiers' heads? Because we can't fit anywhere else." And Smith is like, "Just get it done." And so finally, and this is real, by the way, we're not making this up. This kind of stuff happened, which is just mind-blowing. So you've got this inadequate troop scout tank, not anti-tank, kind of anti-tank that's got enough firepower to destroy a city and can't withstand, I don't know, a mild glaze from a car that passes it by before it explodes, Simpsons or Michael Bay style. And just the stuff that he keeps finding. So in order for the tests to work in the favour of Kelsey Grammer's general, they're like, right, just during the tests, just remove the petrol and just put water in.
Yeah.
Just because it's not flammable. It's not flammable. And then instead of having any kind of gunpowder in the ammo, just take that out and put like sawdust in. Just
sand.
Anything that won't explode.
Instead of gunpowder.
And then when they're trying to justify it, Kelsey Grammer's character is just like, well, we can't just keep blowing them up. But what do you mean you can't keep blowing them up? You're testing them to see if they can get blown up. Yeah, but I haven't got an endless line of Bradleys to just keep blowing up.
When he tries saying that to the congressman in the hearing, he tries using that line where, no, we can't just keep blowing up Bradleys, and then they go, you tried to make the Bradley amphibian. You lost 4 Bradleys trying to cross rivers.
I don't entirely, but I don't entirely believe that. Yeah, but you did. Okay, that technically happened. It's like, what the hell, man? It's so funny. I guess the real kicker is the bit where, I should say, Clifton Powell and John C. McGinley is kind of Kelsey Grammer's underlings in this.
Yeah.
Always trying to fight Barton at these points and stop him from finding the truth out. They're brilliant. John C. McGinley is so funny in this.
When he tries to load the Bradley with sheep in order to make a live test. Yeah.
It's brilliant. So Barton wants to do a live test, and he decides we're going to get sheep so he can show them what would happen to the soldiers. So then he goes into this small room, this reparations room or whatever, and
that's where Kelsey Grammer sends him. So Kelsey Grammer's basically set up an entirely new subdivision in the Pentagon that is solely dedicated to towards requisitioning sheep for this test.
And he's got like, right, okay, so I just want to order some sheep, and this guy's like, well, actually, so first of all, we've got specifications of the sheep, and we've got the rams, and we've got the long-haired sheep, and he's just like, I just want some sheep. Well, first of all, we've got to make sure that, oh my god, and he just goes and buys some sheep, drives into the test area.
Because of course the whole point of the office is, oh no, it's going to take you 6 or 8 months to get these sheep.
So he just drives by some, drives them to the tank testing area, starts putting them in, and then McGinley and Powell's character come up, and they're like, oh no, what are you doing? Put your sheep in, that's ridiculous, they know what will happen. And then he's like, okay then, soldiers, put the sheep back in the van, you get in there. And they're like, oh god, no, put the sheep in. It's like,
yeah.
But I guess the real kicker in the moment when it kind of clicks is Lewis has been pushed into a position where he can't really do anymore. He's being moved to Alaska, and because Kelsey Grammer's general is just sick of him, wants him out of the way, and wants to kind of subvert what's happening and make sure the deals are going ahead that should, and he's maintaining his rank. And Major Smith kind of helps, so he informs the press, and he also manages to tell Barton that he needs to go to Fresno, to the manufacturing plants of the tanks, and then he realizes that the Israelis have put orders in for these tanks, but have asked them to be better specifications, because as they are for the American troops, they'll just explode. It's like, what? So that's when everything kind of kicks off in terms of it becomes a touch more serious then as well, not massively so, but just a touch in the sense of like there's conversations about, these are 70,000 people who could be killed because of the ineptitude of this, the money involved and the rank involved.
I think
and
probably the most important scene in the film is when Cary Elwes' character, because he gets like these anonymous tips about the Bradley at first, and then he figures out, because he gets a letter, and he recognizes the handwriting in the letter from the reports that he's been reading through on the development of the Bradley over the years, and he recognizes that it's actually Colonel Smith, the guy who came up with the Bradley and was responsible for its development. And so he goes and finds Colonel Smith and confronts him at the cafeteria, or the cafeteria in the Pentagon, and they basically go off, and Colonel Smith drags him into like a closet. And there they talk about what's actually going on in the Pentagon, which is all that matters is career advancement.
Yeah.
Because the moment you rock the boat is the moment you don't get your promotion. The moment your project doesn't amount to anything, like doesn't go into production, is the moment, even if it shouldn't go into production, is the moment you don't get promoted. So all that matters is basically getting things into production, keeping greasing the wheels, keeping everything going. Don't rock the boat. Just keep this system going, and that's what everyone is sort of in tune with. And that's what is so toxic, because at that point quality control goes out the window, and you get these massive boondoggles of like hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that just get thrown away for nothing.
I think the court case at the end, near the end, when he's at the general is asked, how much is the cost, how long is it taken? And he spends about 5 minutes ruffling through papers and asking for more. And he's like, 14. And like, 14 what? 14, how much 14? 14 million? 14 billion. I'm sorry, was that 14 billion with a B? Yeah, that 14 billion thing. And how long has this taken? 17 years? 17 years? $14 billion. My God, man. It's like, how do you get to it? I mean, the problem is now.
Yeah, I mean, now you have like the F-22, which is like in the trillions.
Exactly, and this is what I mean. It's not like this is not saying something about modern war peripheral and the way it's made and the money involved and the production involved.
I mean, it's every single. This is in every single like major bureaucracy or like means of production, where you kind of have management overseeing these things, where they're only really concerned about covering themselves and their own career advancement at the cost of everything else.
And being able to sell this stuff to people who are not within their own armed forces, selling it to different parties around the world to make these extra billions of money back from what they spent out on this ridiculous project.
I mean, of course, in the Pentagon, the ultimate thing is you want to end your career, and then when you've ended your career as like a general or something, you want to get the big bucks and get like a board seat on a like board of directors for a military contractor somewhere that you help grease the wheels of their development project.
Lockheed Martin or somewhere like that.
Yeah, precisely. Exactly. Or Halliburton or whatever.
It's a real prophetic indictment of military spending gone insane and the lack of any sort of moral hope for your troops and the want to protect them and keep
proper
them safe,
oversight.
Oversight and health and safety and just making sure that the people who are fighting for your country are safe.
You were talking about the beginning, and I mean, the movie opens with Kelsey Grammer sitting at the Congress hearing and giving testimony, and he talks about development projects that have not gone well in the 80s, and he talks about a heat-seeking missile they developed that wouldn't hit the target until they started basically sticking furnaces onto the tank so that it became so hot that you could cook an egg within 30 meters of it, and then the missile hit and blew it up.
Yeah.
And then they had the bomb, the target guided bomb that couldn't hit the target either, except when they pulled it up in a crane and dropped it straight down on the target.
Yeah, he was like, we tried it on a plane and it missed.
Yeah.
And then we tried it on a helicopter and it missed. Then we just put it on a crane and dropped it. It's like, you can't wheel a crane out of battle every time you need to use a missile and drop it for like 3 meters from the target. Oh man, it's the delusional nature of some of the decisions.
All they need is they just need the check mark on the checklist. It blew up the target.
Just so funny. It's weird though, isn't it? It's got a nice bouncy pace. It's just
it is, and the music's really fun and breezy too. Like it opens with basically a montage of World War I tank development.
And how ridiculous some of that was as well. It's been going on for a long time. This ridiculous war design of tanks and all this stuff that cost millions and billions of dollars. I really liked it. It's a film I'll watch again. I love the ending as well when. So he's gone to Congress. He's had the meetings. He's been General's been told that Kelsey Grammer's character that you will have this live fire test, and either they're going to do what the General says and they're going to make the tank basically fake. You know, they're going to do the
water in the fuel tank,
petrol, and the sand in the bullets, and all that stuff, and do their best to kind of create a facade where everything will go well. And Cary Elwes goes in to the men who are going to carry out these orders and gives them this pep talk about his friend being in a coma from a war with the M16, didn't used to work in Vietnam when it first started, and it would backfire or not work if a bit of sand got in there, and how they finally got it to work. And he believed that pep talk has, really got them going.
Yeah, because of course Kelsey Grammer's character's thinking is, I don't really care if it works now. We'll just put it into production so I can get it into production, so I can get that on my resume, and then we'll make it work afterwards. Like we'll fix it afterwards.
That sounds like a AAA game, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean, precisely. You have, but that's precisely it. I mean, you look at Lionhead or back in the day, right? With Fable, like where you had developers going like, okay, we have this and this, we're working on this, and then Peter Molyneux comes in and says, guys, I just had a great idea, acorns.
Gonna grow from an acorn of the course of your
and then all the developers are sitting there like, what the fuck? This is not what we talked about. This is not what we agreed on. Yeah.
Oh, so in the end, obviously, so he's made this speech, and then they have this live test fire, and the soldiers have done it properly, and it is as it would be in battle conditions, and it just goes, ha-boom! Oh, man.
And the turret lands like 5 feet off of Kelsey Grammer.
And he knows he's done now. But it's quite interesting at the end, obviously because it's based on true situation, that the subtitles that appear afterwards, most of these guys who worked on the Bradley still got promotions.
Yeah.
Still made incredible amounts of money.
And Colonel Burton did not.
And Colonel Burton did not. He was the one who had to retire, who had to go and find another profession because corruption is corruption. He did. He rocked the boat, and it doesn't matter whether it's right or not. Corruption is corruption. Money is money, and the war machine continues. That's what this film is about. Yeah, really great movie. I'm so glad you suggested it because I don't think I would have ever. I don't think it's something that ever would have naturally landed in my path.
No, yeah.
Because it's not that type of movie. But
that's also why I suggested it, because it is sort of an obscure, really obscure film that really caught my eye back when it came out. Like it came out on, I think, DVD here, and I think I rented it at Blockbuster or something, and I just loved it from the moment I saw it. Laughed my ass off.
It's got that feel about it. It's a bit like Jarheads or something. Not in the way that it portrays literal war, but the stupidity of what goes on behind war. Yeah, it's got that slight feel about it. But yeah, I really liked it. If you can find it to watch, it's very, very difficult. I don't think it's on DVD.
It's basically a Kafkaesque nightmare, the entire movie.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely. This was a really difficult one to follow up for the next film because I had loads of different things in mind, and every time you suggest a bloody war film, I'm like, oh man, got to do a war film of some kind. But loads flash through my mind. But before we move on, then, anything else you want to say before we talk about the next week's film?
No, just I really recommend it. Like it's an HBO television film, so you can find it on HBO services, HBO streaming services.
I think it was on Netflix for a bit because when I looked it up, it came up as Netflix. I'm sure it's not there now.
It might well have been. It might well have
at some point.
Yeah, because I mean it's a television movie, so I would imagine that the rights are fairly easy to sort of come by.
Yeah, and it'll kind of appear now and again, but yeah. Very, very much worth it. Really, really funny film.
And you can probably find it on YouTube or something easily as well. I would
have thought so. TV movies, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next week for me is a film by a guy called Jack Gold, made in 1987. It's also a TV movie. It's a bit more well known, I think. And it was produced by ITV in this country and CBS, I think, in America, and went across those networks. I've chosen it because it relates to war, but also because it's a film that stars Rutger Hauer. Of course, we lost Rutger Hauer a little while
unfortunately.
back now, unfortunately, and we just did Blade Runner, which is my favourite film, and Rutger Hauer is one of my favourite character actors of all time. Some of his roles are just so unique. So the film we're going to cover next week is Escape from Sobibor. Basically, it's about Rutger Hauer, Alan Arkin, a group of other concentration camp members who are about the same time as Treblinka and Auschwitz. There are uprisings starting to happen. There are escapes being made. and they decide to attempt an escape to try and get as many people out of that concentration camp as they possibly can. Now, I watched this back when I was at uni. We had a little unit called, quite a big unit called Holocaust on Cinema, and we watched a hell of a lot of different movies from different perspectives around the Holocaust, most of them very horrifying. But Escape from Sobibor is just... It's a really quite uplifting movie at times. It's a really fun movie despite its context. And
Yeah.
Rutger Hauer is bloody brilliant in it, as is Alan Arkin, I think. So that's what we'll be watching next week.
Sounds great. I hope you guys will be joining us by then. I thank you for sticking through with us and for listening. And
wherever you may listen, Anchor, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes.
Yeah, wherever's good for you. And I hope we'll see you next time. Thank you and take care.
Take it easy.